Okay, so I'm Tony Okely. I'm a Senior Professor and Director of Research here at Early Start. Yeah, so the research, we have guidelines here in Australia for children under the age of 5, and those guidelines state that they should accumulate, those that are preschool age, so 3 and 4, should accumulate 3 hours of physical activity a day of any intensity. Ideally, 60 minutes of that should be more energetic type play, so what we would operationalise as a sort of moderate to vigorous activity. Children who are under the age of 3, that 3 hours can be accumulated at any intensity. And for the infants, we're looking at having around 30 minutes of tummy time a day. So that sort of supervised floor-based play. It doesn't all have to be in one bout, so ideally that would be accumulated throughout the day, as does the activity for the older age children. Yeah, so I think if I was going to advise parents on how they could help their children meet those physical activity guidelines while they're spending more time at home, it's important to first of all acknowledge that it is going to be harder to do. Children typically will accumulate most of their activity through outdoor play, and it's much easier to do that when you're in an outdoor environment. So I still think there's a place for outdoor play. Obviously, you still need to balance that now with what the current advice is around physical distancing and ensuring that that is kept. But there's no reason why you can't go outside with your child. Use it as an opportunity to actually interact with your child in a physical way. So go down to the park, do some rough and tumble play with them, play with the ball. If there's opportunities to go for nature walks that are close by and you're keeping that physical distancing, then I think that's a good thing. In terms of inside the house, that's where it's a little bit more challenging, but nonetheless, we do have plenty of ways that we can still be active. So just the simple act of turning the television off or having a downtime from screens will force your children to find something to do where they will be more active and less sedentary. So I think about things like, building a cubby house, playing a game of tip inside the house, even playing hide and seek. So those types of things that don't require a lot of equipment can keep children entertained for quite a period of time. And then I think if you're looking at developing or keeping their motor skills, trying to keep them engaged from a motor skill perspective, then I think looking at how you can adapt equipment. So things like a balloon are very good to be able to use, and you can use that in place of a ball. Children can still hit that, they can kick it, they can bounce it, and it's not going to break anything inside the house, as will like a foam type ball. So things like that, and even using the space to be able to practice those sort of locomotor skills. They can still run, they can hop, they can skip, they can gallop. You can play some games around that. And obviously it's a great opportunity to put some music on and to move around to music. What's important though is kids will draw their cues from you as the parent or carer. So if you can actually do it with them, it's going to be far more enjoyable for the child, and it's going to be a way that you can keep active, which is really important too for your own health. So the current Australian guidelines around screen time, and it is sedentary screen time. So that's where here, if we've got a screen on and there's something where the children are up and moving about, but they're looking at a screen while they're moving, whether that be to music, whether it be to some type of stimulus there, that's okay. So the recommendations are for children under the age of 2 that sort of screen time that's more recreational and where they're sitting down is probably not okay. Over the age of 2, try and limit it to 1 hour a day. Obviously, things like co-viewing, high-quality educational programming is what we're trying to promote here, rather than screen time that's more recreational and where they're more a passive user of that. So certainly I think looking for that, using that as an opportunity to be able to, there's so many great YouTube clips, there's so many great apps out there that can actually provide a stimulus for children to get up and move around. And music is great for them. It's great for developing their rhythmical skills, and it's a great way that you can engage with your child as well. Be mindful that you're probably going to move a little bit less when you're indoors, so you should try and compensate for that by just watching your energy intake, obviously, because you're not going to be potentially as active. But no, there's no change here. I mean, there's plenty of good fresh fruit and vegetables and good produce still available. And when you think about our guide to healthy eating, it's recommended that we be looking at 5 serves of vegetables, 2 serves of fruit a day. So there's no reason why that can't be done. If you're at home there with the child, again, think about how you can model that. Think about how you can create healthy eating behaviours. So things like, not sitting down in front of the television while you're eating a meal, using it as an opportunity to interact with your child and to have good conversations about how they've found the day, how they're coping with the changes in their environment, preparing the food together. All of those things where the children are interacting, where the children are engaging with the parent, are a good way to be able to incorporate some of those healthy habits into their daily routine. Yeah, so I typically will exercise in the morning. I use that word exercise because as an adult, that's where I go out and do something structured for a period of time. For children, it's important to note that most of their physical activity will come through play. So I wouldn't necessarily be promoting them to go out and do something which would be similar to what an adult would do, where you go out for a 30-minute run or a 40-minute run. I'd be more saying, try and create an environment where they're free to play, where they're free to explore, where they've got plenty of equipment there that can keep them amused, and you interact with them as a parent there. And don't worry too much about the intensity. It doesn't need to be repetitious. It doesn't need to be of a particular intensity for the children to enjoy it and for the children to get a health benefit from it. It's also important to note, and this isn't directly answering your question, that we talk about the physical health benefits of being active, but it's also important to note that if children are feeling more anxious, more uncertain, more stressed because of the changes in their daily routine, then physical activity can be a great way to actually compensate for that. It's a great way that they can actually deal with that and they can process that, and that it will be beneficial to them coping with those differences there. So I try and do that. I have a study, so I try and keep 2 meters away from other people while I'm working. The other thing too is, if you've got pets or animals at home, try and incorporate them a little bit more into your day. I mean, they're a great companion. And when you go out and do something, just ensure that you can take your dog with you if you're able to, because I think it's important for them to be able to be part of whatever you're doing there as well. So I'll try and spend time around them, and we sort of spread out a little bit more when we're eating our meals or when we're sitting around and having some time interacting together.